Welcome to this presentation on activity-based costing and its various benefits and the industries wherein the method is useful. I am Aninda Datta, the presenter. Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji. The differences between traditional costing methods and the activity-based costing. The features of activity-based costing and the characteristics of industries where ABC is useful. The hierarchical steps of activity-based costing process. The kind of overhead which could be allocated through ABC. The two different methods of determining activity rates, that is the activity driver and time-based rate and benefits, drawbacks of both the methods. The two main methods of allocating activity cost to the cost objects and their suitability in the different scenarios. Now, activity-based costing is a costing method that assigns indirect costs to products, services, customers, or projects based on the activities that actually consume the resources. It is particularly useful when the overhead costs are large and products or services consume resources differently. The methodology. For the traditional costing allocates overhead costs using a single broad cost driver such as direct labor hours or machine hours. Methodology for the activity for the ABC assigns indirect costs to specific activities. Example, quality inspections, machine setups, and then allocates them to products based on their actual consumption of those activities. Accuracy. Traditional costing. It is lower. It assumes all products consumes overhead resources equally, which could lead to overcosting or undercosting of certain products. Accuracy ABC higher. It provides a much clearer picture of the true cost of producing a good or serving a customer. Complexity. Traditional costing simple and less expensive to implement. Complexity of ABC more complex and resource intensive to implement and maintain. Best used for traditional costing businesses with a single product line, homogeneous manufacturing process, or low overhead costs. Best used for ABC, complex operations with diverse product lines or high overhead costs where precise profitability and pricing data are vital. ABC, best used for complex operations with diverse product lines or high overhead costs where precise profitability and pricing data are vital, like hospitals, construction, manufacturing with many products. Now, activity-based costing is very useful in accurate allocation of production-driven indirect overhead costs to cost objects. As in ABC, the resources are assigned to activities and activities to cost objects. Now, these are the broad areas of differences between traditional costing and activity-based costing. Now, activity-based costing is also called diagnostic costing because it examines cost at a more granular level. Here it is the differences are examined under the head cost allocation, like for traditional it's single cost driver, for ABC it's multiple activity drivers, for accuracy it's fails in complex environment, whereas ABC is highly accurate regardless of product diversity. In overhead visibility, the traditional costing is quite limited, whereas in ABC it provides granular level transparency. In decision support, traditional costing is basic accounting, whereas in ABC it is more strategic, helps in strategic pricing and continuous operational improvement. Action taken to produce some form of output like purchasing materials and quality tested output. Now these are the various terminologies used in computing activity-based costing. Direct cost, a cost which need not be allocated as it could be directly traced to a product or service. That is the cost object. Cost driver, a basis of allocating activity cost to cost objects. It defines what consumes the resources, like issuing purchase orders in purchase department. It drives consumption of resources. Activity cost, total cost incurred to carry out an activity. Example, total cost of carrying out quality testing and finished goods. Allocation, a logical method of allocating cost based on cause-effect relationship. Cost objects could be anything you want to measure the cost against, like products, services, and consumers. Now, ABC is very useful in industries with large indirect overheads compared to direct costs, and those industries having diverse products and services where absorption costing will not give accurate allocation of indirect overheads to wide range of products. The manufacturing and sales overheads varying with production and sales could be allocated accurately with ABC. Of facility level costs. Facility level like factory rent, plant security, etc. Here the costs do not vary much with production, so allocation will not vary much with ABC compared to absorption costing. Customer level overheads like sales visit, customer support. More accurate cost allocation to cost objects could be done through appropriate drivers like number of visits. Product level overhead like production design, engineering changes. Here more accurate cost allocation to cost objects could be made through appropriate drivers. Batch level overheads like machine setups, purchase orders, etc. Accurate allocation through ABC by drivers like number of batches, number of purchase orders, etc. Unit level cost like power consumption, machine processing. These are direct overheads which could be directly traced to the concerned products without needing ABC. Now, activity costing method allocating indirect overheads on the basis of activities consumed by final cost objects, and the different activities have different rates based on resources consumed by each activity center. The traditional costing allocates indirect overheads to cost based on one or two activities, so the final costs allocated are less accurate. Costs are incurred to perform activities in order to provide products or services to customers. So the first costs are collected under various heads, and then the costs are allocated to activities, and then those activity costs are loaded on products and customers. Whereas traditional costing is a more blunt instrument. The traditional method relies on calculating one single plant-wide overhead rate. Just see, one plant overhead rate, and that is the machine hours, and that is allocated. Based on that, it is allocated to various products. The activity rates could be driver based or time based. The activity cost allocation to cost objects could be on the pull basis or on push basis. In activity-based costing, costs are allocated in a hierarchy of steps. The basic idea is that resources are consumed by activities and activities are consumed by cost objects like products, services, customers. Step 1. Identify the cost objects. Determine what you want to measure cost of. That is products, services, customers, projects. Step 2. Identify activities. Break down the operation into significant activities that consume resources. Example, machine setup, purchasing materials, quality inspection, packaging, customer support. Step 3. Assign resource cost to activity cost pools using resource drivers. Like these are the resource cost: factory rent, supervisor salary, electricity, and these are the resource drivers. For factory rent, it is floor area used. For supervisor salary, it is time spent supervising, and for electricity, it is machine hours. Every resource cost is mapped to an activity cost pool, thus giving total activity cost pool such as purchasing cost pool, inspection cost pool, material handling cost pool. Now, activity costs are assigned to cost objects based on activity driver rates and the activity consumed by every cost object. Step 4. Determine activity cost drivers. For each activity, identify what causes the activity to be performed. These are the various lists of activities. Like material handling, the cost drivers is number of material moves. For setup, then it is the number of setups. For inspection, the number of inspections. For purchasing, the number of purchase orders. Step 5. Calculate activity driver rates. Compute the cost per unit of activity. Activity rate equal to total activity cost pool by total driver units. If the total setup cost pool is rupees 1 million and there are 200 setups, then the setup cost rate is 1 million divided by 20 equal to rupees 5,000. Step 6. Assign activity costs to cost object. Suppose a machinery uses 10 setups, then rupees 5,000 would be allocated to the same machine. That is, sorry, rupees 50,000 would be allocated to the same machine. That is 5,000 into 10. The activity rate could be time-driven or driver-based method. However, both the methods do far more accurate allocation of indirect overheads than the traditional costing methods. Time-driven activity-based costing as the activity cost rate is the cost of supplying resource capacity for a specific unit of time, example per minute or per hour. Here the time needed to deliver 1 unit of service is calculated and practical number of hours available in an activity pool during a time period is calculated. Suppose quality control department has a practical capacity of 5,000 hours annually based on manpower and other resources. Suppose the annual budgeted total quality service cost pool is 2 million. So the cost per quality test is 400. That is 2 million divided by 5,000 hours. This method is more useful if the activity center renders many different kinds of activities. So in an activity rate based ABC system, different activity rates need to be calculated for each kind of quality test. So the question comes up how granular a company could go to arrive at activity rates. However, in a time-based ABC system, a single time-based rate for entire quality control department could be calculated, and the complicated long test would consume more time. The time-driven rate enables arriving at total capacity available in an activity center in terms of the available time. Now, time-dependent activity rates provides a measure of available capacity which could be used subsequently to calculate capacity utilization of activity centers. Now, these are the various pros and cons of data-driven and the time-driven activity rates. These are the pros of the data-driven rate, that is, could be modeled quickly, tolerance estimates for resources. The cost assignment network relationships yield much of the cost accuracy. The cons are grows exponentially as cost objects become more granular, requires creation and maintenance of a large activity dictionary, is capacity insensitive, which means it doesn't measure unused or idle capacity cost. Whereas in time dependent rates, the pros that is data driven and accommodates automated source data inputs, allows detecting of transactional data and associated complexities, eliminates or reduces the size of the activity dictionary, is capacity sensitive and can calculate unused capacity. The cons are time equations requires understanding of syntax rules and requires reasonable precise time measurement source data of activities. The time-driven approach captures more variation and diversity of the cost objects. The time-driven method combined with pull method could give a good idea about capacity utilization of activity centers. The assignment method, push or pull basis, refers to whether all of the expenses incurred are fully allocated push to products as product costs, or whether only a measurement of the consumed amount of those expenses is pulled into the products. Push method, 100% of the expenses incurred during the period are assigned to the activities performed by all of those activity costs are in turn reassigned to the recipients or cost objects that consume them. Pull method. With the pull approach, the sender of expenses can be viewed as a mini profit centers in which agreed upon rates for their services are established, typically based on a budgeted or planned expenses and expected volumes. All expenses under the push method, all expenses are accounted for in which the expenses collected in the general ledger accounting system equal the total amount when adding up all of the activity costs and the ultimate final cost objects. Now, under the pull method, consumers of these services pay a fixed rate. That is the price for the actual volume that they consume. That is no more, no less. It is a method of partial absorption of the resource expenses. Push method. A downside of the push approach is that the suppliers of the resource capacity expense, that is the spender of the expenses, always recovers 100% of the expenses. The pull approach opens a new world of arm's length relationship between the supporting centers and the customer facing departments. Internal service providers may favor this method because it can show the need for additional resources based on the over recovery or the under recovery. Another negative aspect of the push approach is that it is frequently capacity insensitive. That is, there is no obvious way to classify individual resource capacities as used or unused, that is idle or excess. Hence, the final cost objects will be modestly overcosted for expenses that they did not cause or require. The pull approach also introduces a rudimentary measure of capacity utilization, the percent over under cost recovery. But a problem with the pull approach is that the correctness of the cost assignment is highly contingent on the setting of the accurate rates. Push-based method works well where products do not change frequently and activities are stable and repeatable, whereas pull-based methods work well where products and activities change frequently. Push-based and pull-based, the difference. Under the push-based method, activities are stable and repeatable. Cost drivers are easy to identify and measure. Industries with high volume repetitive operation processes, that is manufacturing, logistics, utilities, banking operations, generally benefit the most. Indirect costs are significant but follow predictable patterns. Industries where push-based ABC works well. Automotive parts, chemicals, food processing activities such as purchasing, setups, inspections, and material handling are relatively easy to measure and allocate through cost drivers. Logistics and warehousing activities are standardized and repetitive. Pull-based method of cost allocation. Activities are highly customized and knowledge intensive. Industries with high customization, innovation, and knowledge work. Many costs are exploratory and uncertain, making it difficult to establish stable cost drivers. Indirect costs are difficult to predict. Industries where pull-based ABC works well are consulting and professional services. A client's cost consumption often depends on unique circumstances, making standard activity drivers less representative. Research and development-based industries like pharmaceuticals, advanced engineering, etc. Thus, industries with high customization and innovation have pull-based methods plus time-based activity rate as most suitable for allocation of overhead costs. So this concludes this presentation on activity-based costing. Thanks for watching. Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji.